Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. What time is it? Oh, it's only 11. Okay, I'm good. Welcome back to Hearts Around for the new order, Ordem y Progresso. As Brazil. Now, last video, we came to an agreement with the Free French to end piracy, and we're gonna force some of these other guys to come to an agreement here. Let's go ahead and promote some loyal officers, increase nepotism a little bit, but get some more constitutionalists. I think that's how it works, at least. I think we'll just campaign in Rio Grande do Sul. And we're about to see some ships in the... In the Dietrich Eckart, stern traveler, 150 tons registered out of Luanda. Oh, that's not a German accent. Detailed Marshal Odilio Denise. So, Mr. President, that's 4 days since yesterday. It remains to be seen what they do next, but I can't imagine Berlin. The door to the President's office opened, and Quadro stuck his head in asking, "Did you tell Toscano to seize German ships without even telling Germany?" Yes. The negotiations weren't going to go anywhere, and the ships continued to rob us blind, so naturally we had to skip to sending the Central Africans a message they could understand, and now they know we aren't messing around. This is bad, Enrique. Are you certain this is the right thing to do? Miller doesn't want to get this out of hand either. He doesn't want to get the Reich into a war with Brazil, and Germania might just be angry enough now to take a hard line against us. Oh, hell, it was always going to end up like this. Everyone who met the Reich Commissariat says Mueller's a madman. He can't see us as an equal on the negotiating table, and he doesn't have any interest in avoiding a diplomatic incident. There can be no negotiation with the Reich unless we can show them we are willing to go toe-to-toe. And this is the wake-up call he needs to realize we're serious. Quadros thought it over and said, "Yes, I understand your point. If we're negotiating with a real African state, then things would be different, but Reich Commissariat, I don't think anyone wants to treat a German colony as equal." Correct. They're a damned colony, and that's why we're taking a hard line. I think a real country would be more respectful anyway. All right, Mr. President. Have a nice afternoon. Double standards for savages and civilized. How long do these elections go for? Guanabara. Where's Guanabara? Guanabara. I guess we'll figure that out soon enough. One of these places? Adamar stepped onto the campaign bus, staffers flowing around it, preparing flyers, leaflets, and equipment for dozens of canvassers, campaigners, and officials that were traveling with Adamar. Winning the Guanabara Senate election was essential with its countless donors and minor politicians would see the PSP as a proper party that could win elections. It would even give his presidential election a needed boost from investment. Adamar briefly sat down. It was 4 p.m. and he'd been campaigning since 6 in the morning. He loved the campaigning, the rush of energy, and the excitement he got when he heard cheers at rallies, the countless supporters chanting his name. But working for that long did take the wind out of him. As he sat, he felt the campaign bus move, moving on to another location of dozens already canvassed. As he took a hot dog from a passing staffer, he smirked. Campaign buses were relatively a new phenomenon in Brazilian politics, and he was glad to be able to use personal connections with automobile manufacturers in Sao Paulo to acquire many buses for affordable prices. The opposition parties had been surprised by Adamar's innovations, supplying PSP candidates nationwide with these buses to fight in the election. Wouldn't be enough in many races, but Adamar hoped that Guanabara it would give him enough edge to succeed. Guanabara. Are we doing better here? I could have sworn we were. I think I'm mixing it. Better here, you're here. That's not the best for us. Para. I don't like that tie, so we'll just campaign there. Lock it down. Oh, this is it. Okay, Guanabara. Plinio Salgado sat and stared blankly at the cityscape just outside his drab office window. Lisbon was no Brasilia, that's for sure. Ever since his, failure in 55, Salgado had been forced into exile in the Iberian city of Lisbon. He was just about sick of it. Siestas Christ, Salgado was sick of goddamn Iberians, sick of their idiotic customs, and sick of watching his own party get subverted from a million miles away, completely helpless to do anything about it. Salgado was working himself into a frenzy just thinking about that idiot lot driving this country into the ground. He needed to go for a walk, smoke a cigarette, something. Anything to get away from the depressing reports his few loyal agents in Brazil still sent him. Salgado pried himself from his seat and left his shitty rented office in a shitty building packed full of the things. When he fled to Iberia, his hope was to bring Franco or Salazar onto his side, to gather their support and retake Brazil in the name of fascism. Unfortunately, that notion was dispelled soon enough. Franco barely humored his requests in meetings, while Salazar categorically refused to speak with him. Eventually, even Franco shunned him, apparently annoyed with the request of a fellow fascist patriot and believer. Idiots. Salgado made his way over to a small park near the building, a charming little slice of the outdoors of the pond. Like it or not, he had no route back to Brazil, no hope of taking back his country. Unless something changed either here or back home, Salgado's cause was doomed. He brought some bread for the ducks. Let's do the 48-hour ultimatum. Let us issue a 48-hour ultimatum giving these vultures a choice. Either they leave Brazilian waters or have their ships seized and their workers imprisoned. But we should be vigilant. If one of these people decide to be a good idea to test the ultimatum into our waters another time, we should be ready to back up our words with force. Now that works for me. Ooh. The indispensable Walter Silas had grown even more indispensable and late in this world gone mad. In his role as a foreign minister, Silas was crucial to the current administration. He also appealed to Lot's eyes to be quite overworked. The former businessman's usually impeccable suits were a bit threadbare of late. Yes, Mr. Silas, please tell me you have good news. Lot rubbed his forehead. His foreign minister fussed with the folder he had been brought before him before speaking. I'm afraid news from D.C. are not good. Nixon is angry about Bonham's play, especially late in his term like this. For reasons of domestic politics, he's sending in the troops to show the world the risk of defying the oath. Excuse me. The Americans claim to be free to make and unmake any government in the Americas. How arrogant of them, to ignore the sovereignty of any government that vexes them. Not amused. His foreign minister was about to reply when the usual door swung that herald the vice president let himself be heard. President! The Americans in Guyana, it's terrible. Brazil will not abet this outrageous abuse of our northern brothers. We should declare in strong words. We shouldn't declare anything in strong words. The foreign minister, as usual, was irritated at the vice president's attempt to tell him how to do his job. Enough, both of you. Lot stood, preventing another round of bickering. Let me think. The former present military officer walked to the window. His foreign minister would be right to argue that Brazil was in no position to poke the Americans in the eye. Lot was equally correct to protest unilateral American action. The president, though, then turned to face her too. We will support the American intervention. Relationship is cooperative, which is good. I think we'll schedule an inspection at our nearest able opportunity. President Lot didn't enjoy talking to the media. His television and radio speeches offering praise for the American invention had been done in his usual perfunctory style, a topic he never did. It was all that the Americans willing to oppose tyranny in all its forms had done its people and the world much good. Burnham's coup had been illegal, and his role as President Lot hoped to see the concert of nations be one day filled with free countries where men's rights were sacred. Absent the conference was Quadros, no doubt sulking about the government's unwillingness to criticize the American invention. This suited Lot as made it easier for him to focus on answering the journalists' questions. Most of them seemed content to support his decision, for after all, most of the military Use of military to quash democracy was no science fiction to Brazilians. Good to know the Americans sometimes did the right thing, having exhausted all other options. One journalist asked the president if he would support the Americans disposing any leaders they found offensive. President Look took a second too long to think, eliciting a wave of photos as he glared at the journalist. I do not support injustice in any form. Burnham is not free to take his people's rights away, nor would the Americans be free to terminate any government they saw fit. A weak response. Lott answered the remaining questions as best he could. That journalist was familiar with him, no doubt, from the right-wing's scandal rage. It's Quadros behind this. Yeah, we got the advantage here. We can do another development edict. Let's encourage some migration in the south. Trying to decide. Ooh. Well. Let's campaign for our guy. It's a little closer than I like there, but I'm okay with how it's shaped up. Yeah, I like how this is going so far. Do we not have any music playing? Ooh. That would explain it. Let's go orchestra. There's only one orchestral song. Shit. Because I've noticed it's been quiet for a while. I just don't know, Let's just get orchestral going, I guess. Enrique Lot was meeting with the board of Petrobras, who had recently helped expand their operations. The meeting was cordial, despite the relatively displeasing subject matter. While a man like Quadros might lose his mind in anger with what stuff was being discussed, Lot was frankly made of sterner stuff. So you're telling me that, in spite of the recent expansion of Petrobras operations, is still a drop in the bucket compared to what we have to import from elsewhere? President Petrobras spread his hands. I'm afraid that is the case, Your Excellency. We still have to import supplies from the Italian Spear and the Middle East, from E&I and what have you. And that shows no signs of stopping for the foreseeable future. 20 years at least is what we're expecting before we can wean ourselves from this. Lot was visibly displeased, although he understood where the man was coming from. And what if we continue industrializing? The chief financial officer answered this one. Regrettably, Your Excellency, the 20 years my colleague found will only get us bigger if we keep on industrializing. If we go to the level we're ongoing time, so it'll probably be 40 years. If we go to the level that Senor Kubitschek did, what with his faster doctrine of industrialization, it might be a full century. Lot shook his head in displeasure. This cannot be borne, gentlemen. I will have to insist that you find a way to make this change as soon as possible. At this moment, a secretary walked into the room with a day's paper. Lot read it, his eyebrows went up for a moment, and he pushed the paper down the oil executives. The headline said, Oil prices destabilized by Italo-Turkish conflicts. There's an impetus for you, gentlemen. Get to work! I can't really keep this accent straight. Kind of upset about that a little bit, but hey. Ooh. The election season is finally finished, as the Brazilian electorate goes to vote. Campaigners and activists put down their leaflets and placards and have a rest from campaigning, where their politicians nervously await the election results to see whether their careers have ended in tatters or if they've been elected once again. Meanwhile, the media gives a running commentary and report on the results showing which politicians won in which seats and which major upsets there have been. Ambassadors and foreign agents all quickly scramble to gather what limited information there is to see in the future direction of Brazil. No matter the results, the Brazilian people have voted, and the Brazilian people will get the results they voted for. Let us hope that it was a wise choice. The votes are tallied, And we can see we have more seats now, it seems. Yeah, it looks like it. I believe we do, at least. Brazil's Congresso Nacional finds itself a house divided in the aftermath of 62 parliamentary elections. Though on paper the Congresso Nacional appears to be controlled by the Vargas alliance of PTB and PSD, nowhere near as simple as that. So when I expense their front lines, fault lines, and factions enough to make elementary schoolers' playground squabbling seem like a manifestation of student unity by comparison. In the Câmara dos Deputados, the lower house, João Goulart, formerly vice president under Juscelenko Kubitschek, was able to garner enough support for PTB, PSD, PSP, and other minor parties to be elected the position of president of that chamber. But in the Senado, the brightest PSD candidate, Auro de Moura Andrade, not known to be on good terms with Goulart, was the one that became president. Because of PTB, taking advice from Goulart, refused countenance having him serve as president of the Senate, Auro instead relied upon a cross-line support from the UDN and other opposition parties. The situation, though less than desirable, is probably manageable for President Lot, unless some sort of crisis occurs that would require Auro and Django to collaborate, which strikes most observers as an unlikely occurrence at best. Duly noted. I'm okay with how this turned out. I think it worked well. We have reasonable gains all around. I think we got all the big ones that we realistically could. We're still detaining vessels. 3 today, 5 yesterday, and that's the ones we know. There's almost certainly ones that made it through that we don't know about, and the B-17s are still tracking trawlers that come through. If there's a warning, they're still not heeding it. So they either don't have radios or they are ignoring us because the ambassadors say it's in the Völkische Beobachter. And I'm thinking Mila has decided to play chicken with us. Mr. President, a detention operation is still feasible at this point. Our ships are still capable of defending the coast and are willing to stay out there as long as we need them to. If we want to keep this up, we certainly could end up detaining the entire German fishing fleet in the Bay of All Saints. We could, but that's not going to get us the results we need. It's been told to me Germany could retaliate in some way with their ships being detained by us. They'll most likely claim some sort of compensation and take our assets if we don't give up. A crisis needs to end, and end quickly. So it's settled, I guess. More aggressive action is needed. How much time should we give them? 48. If by that time they still want to try it, then you have my permission to take whatever action you see fit. We can avoid the more unpleasant bits. We'll do an announcement, get them off the ship, and then do it with nobody aboard. It'll be a gentlemanly affair. Respectful. I wouldn't want anything else, Admiral, though it does depend on how Mule and Germany respond to the warning. Another line is drawn. Ooh. The Germans pacified. German ships have stopped coming into our waters in such large numbers. We've succeeded in our objective of dramatically reducing the number of lobsters being legally fished in our waters. This has shown the Germans, indeed the whole world, that Brazil, the South American juggernaut, is not one to be cowed. I like it. So we got a solid balance between Quadros and these guys. Who do these people think we are? And they still keep coming? Well, yes, but it seems that, like Mule, isn't entirely cavalier about this. Our scout aircrafts report the trawlers that may have men with guns on board. Looks like they're preparing for any boarding attempts. Who's crazy enough to put infantry on a trawler? Mueller would, sir, and that's going to complicate any boarding actions we might take against the ships. So we put the Marines on them, we'll potentially be risking a fight over several fishing boats. Christ, is a problem. Yes, sir, but alternatively we could take a more moderate course of action. How so? The mercenaries aren't that good at long range, and no captain wants to get hit by a Mark 12 5-inch, so we gently guide them away, maybe bump them or fire across the bow if they don't get the hint, but still gives them a message. It's less likely to result in a firefight. That may work, but it's not as forceful. It's only one idea, but we need a decision soon. What are your orders? Let's play it safe and keep them at an arm's length. Captain Carlos Pachera, the Piranha, thought himself lucky to catch up with the trawling fleet in such a short time. He was the first to receive the report and was nearest to their location. He expected the Green Hull and Babatonga to be on site shortly, but he was confident enough and he could handle some unarmed trawlers with his old American destroyer. The Germans were going to learn that they were outclassed soon enough. This is the Brazilian destroyer Piranha. You are his communications expert, broadcast in English to the boats. You are in Brazilian territory. You will leave immediately or you will take action to protect Brazilian rights. He looked at the captain, and the captain nodded to the lieutenant on deck, and commenced the next phase of the plan. It may not have been the most modern, up-to-date armament, but several rounds of 40 Mike still kicked up a lot of water. The burst of fire would still be plenty intimidating for some crab fishermen too far off from where they were supposed to be. The sound of just one of those guns reverberated through the ship. Pacheco had 5 more at his disposal, along with other armaments that could put holes in the boats he was tasked with scaring off. Evidently, the German bastards got the message, and they began to leave. Some took their nets on board, others cut them loose and just ran. Pacheco sighed a brief sigh of relief as he knew the battle was over, but as the vessels pulled away, one of the officers on deck noticed something with his binoculars. Still got a lot of crabs. So we got more constitutionalists, which is good. Probably schedule an inspection, I'm thinking. And what do we got here? I don't think we quite have a timer for, We'll get notified eventually when the next edict is, going to happen. Do a thorough audit, though. That's gonna help the hardliners. Okay, interesting. Well, it's time for Bountiful Harvest to be examined. The lobster wars ended in a Brazilian victory. With competition now gone, large amounts of fish and lobsters can arrive on our shores once again as Brazilian fishermen are free to fish their rightful waters unchallenged. A bountiful harvest and greater economic prosperity is on the way. With this victory, our Republic of Brazil is one step closer to bringing about Ordem e Progresso in its own lands. Wonderful. And let's go ahead and schedule an inspection. Looks like the military has been dealt with. Seems they're content. So we'll get the nepotism out. And Lot is dominant. I think isn't a bad thing. Lightly developed, partially industrialized. Oh, the Northeast is partially industrialized too. That's nice to see. Men, in my career, there have been very few times like this one tonight. Certainly one you will feel the same way about. The officers of the Brazilian 3rd Naval District Command had gathered in the banquet room of the Palacio de Alvora. They were all excited to be there after a long period at sea facing down the German Navy. Even Quadros. Alright. Admiral Toscano and Marshal Denise were there and both were happy as well. Even Quadros was happy to be part of the festivities and had a right to be, by all means. Truth be told, I thought I would never have a moment like this one. When I was in Britain, a lot of us entertained the notion that we could turn the tide and force the Germans back. That we could save a country with our efforts and our efforts alone, but that didn't happen, and it has eaten us ever since. Some men had thought this would mean the end of the free world. The forces of hate and tyranny could always humiliate and abuse of democratic nations. And no one expected that one day any free nation, let alone one in South America, could stand and hold its own. Certainly few in this country did, but our pride and honor demanded we set a line. By your work and your work alone, that line held. Brazil is now the only nation in the history of the 20th century to win an unequivocal victory over fascism. Nobody not the Americans, not the British or French empires, has done what you have done these past few weeks. And now it can take pride in the worst defeat of the German Navy since the Graf Spee was scuttled. Gentlemen, we drew a line and the Germans could not cross it. As you enjoy this wonderful menu of lobster-based meals specifically prepared for the occasion, with this very same shellfish you protected at sea. You will keep in mind that this meal was made possible because you kept the New World secure from the disasters and the downfall of the Old. Lot raised his glass and the entire table followed. Para a Marina do Brasil. Okay, so we can go ahead, do some stuff. I'll go ahead. Subsidize Mechanation. And let's have some coffee with Neves. Enrique Texera Lot will now meet with Tancredo Neves in order to discuss the economic situation that the Republic now finds itself in. Senor Lot believes that Neves' help will be the economic weapon he needs in order to put Brazil's economic chaos to an end. As for Senor Neves, he wishes to discuss managing the economy and development of Brazil, and believes that this president is best placed to see Brazil's economic revival through. Needless to say, the cups of fine Brazilian coffee that Lot and Neves gulped down this morning may turn out to be the most important drinks in modern Brazilian history. HoI is 30.1% complete. Beautiful. Seems we can't increase it much more. In fact, we can't at all. Troubled times, some troubled land. It is what it is there. Aliens won the Italo-Turkish War. And the PSD and the PTB have a pretty good majority, which I'm happy with. Wilson Leite Passos, a congressman of Carlos Lacerda's UDN, had recently won re-election for his seat, but the governor of Guanabara, far from being happy about a party member winning as he might have been for virtually anyone else, was incandescent with rage and displeasure. So much so, in fact, that one might say that Lacerda might have even preferred Getulio Vargas himself to win the seat, though it might have been a colossal blunder to actually claim it to Lacerda's face. Why might one say that? Because at least Vargas, unlike Wilson, wasn't a fascist. Everyone, from Enrique Lot to the denizens of Guanabara, knew that Lacerda hated fascism. Though Lacerda had managed to calm himself down about the matter, his anger that day was reignited by the recent newsflash from one of Wilson's recent speech engagements. What? You're telling me that good-for-nothing, German-loving, Nazi-aping asshole Wilson would want us to have closer ties with Germany? And he publicly said so? I'm afraid so, sir. Was there even a slight hint of irony or sarcasm in his voice? None at all, sir. For fuck's sakes, that Hitler-loving idiot would make us all slaves to those eagle-addled, bigoted blonde bastards. We don't contain him. Esther, go and tell the party leaders that the piece of human trash had better be dealt with before he gets too much influence. If they don't want me to come and deal with him and them too. Yes, sir, I will inform them. As the secretary left, Lacerda drank some whiskey to calm himself and shook his head. Why the hell would anyone find something to admire in that horse shit? So, summed up, we have avoided the worst of the crisis with our decisive actions taken earlier, but the inflation and debt still pose a problem. Lutz says, looking at the report as Minister of the Economy, Tancredo Neves and Celso Furtado, his Minister of Planning, had brought to him. It was early in the morning, with the sun only having risen out and the sky covered with clouds. Lot took a sip of coffee he had been given by his secretary as he waited for him to reply. Effectively, that is the case, Tancredo Neves stated, before speaking again. I've gathered a few economic proposals that will help us deal with this problem. Raise some taxes here and there, change the interest rates, make it harder for companies to dodge their taxes. This should settle the crisis. And with these proposals, we can ensure economic growth continues to soar and our industrialization program is not hampered. Well, I'm glad that this crisis looks like it'll be easy dealt with. Finally, they've bloody shot him! Quadros shouted as he barged into the meeting room. Shot who, Johnny-O? Lot quickly replied. He was used to Quadros' outbursts by now, but someone had been shot and he could not easily dismiss his comment. João Pedro Teixeira, leader of the Peasants' League in Paraíba, was walking home with his children, and then someone pulled a gun out and bloody shot him 3 times in the back. He was dead within the hour. The Peasants' League are furious. Talks about strikes are flying about. Lot, Tancredo, and Celso, who were all looking at Quadros when he barged in, were all quiet for a few moments. It would be Celso who broke the silence. This complicates things. Oh no. Well, we'll start with the Neves plan. The plan suggested by our esteemed finance minister, the prudent Tancredo Neves, is as follows. Raise fees, taxes, and otherwise get a hold of money in order to service our debt, which, thanks to the ambitious spending of the programs of President Lot's predecessor, among many other things, is at a crisis level, before we give any thought to promoting economic growth. Only when this debt has had less of a stranglehold on us can we get to work on various investments and economic stimulus schemes, which will grow the economy. This, in turn, will further reduce our debt and free us to do what we want with our finances. Ooh. Okay. Looks like we can improve a relationship even more, so let's do that. Perfect relationship. Beautiful. Lot sat in his chair, sitting quietly, thinking about the situation, rubbing his chin, as he looked at the report Quadros had given him. Quadros was pacing around the room, muttering to himself about the situation. Tancredo Neves and Cecil looked awkwardly between each other, and after a brief conversation between the two, Tancredo coughed. I believe we will need to deal with the situation quickly. The economics and peasants' leagues. We should employ Django to talk to the peasants' leagues. He is fairly popular and convince them to calm down. Send trusted advisors, investigate the situation, find out who did it. I agree with that excellent proposal. Most likely the first and last I will agree with Tancredo on. Quadros exclaimed out loud. Goulart may have incorrect views on economics, but both groups support him and Brizola. Willing him out might help. Lot nodded, surprised the room could agree on this issue. I'll begin the call to Django immediately. I'll get him to go out and talk to the League, hopefully, and can stop the situation descending into chaos. And on your economic proposal, Tancredo, I believe these could be. But before Lot could finish his speech, Quadros interrupted him. Henrique, don't tell me you're going with their plan. Their plan will only boost inflation. We need to cut taxes, crack down on inflation, and deal with growing debt if we want the economy to continue to prosper. Thank you, Janio, for your interruption. I will, of course, listen to all advice, and have not yet decided my action. Janio, you keep a watch on the situation. I will be calling Django. Tancredo and Celso, thank you for coming. You are dismissed. Lot said, with the 3 men nodding their head, and one by one left the room. After he left, Lot sighed and finished his coffee. Outside, it began to rain. We got some dockyards. I think we'll work on convoys. Well, let's do resource extraction. I don't have to worry too much about roleplay stuff. I think this is the only song playing for a while. It's not a bad song. I might just get sick of it eventually. That's the only thing that comes in the music pack. I should have gotten, whatchamacallit. We have the Panama Canal Zone, which is cool. Panama itself. Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, us, of course, Paraguay, which is fascist. Jesus Christ, that's not nice. Uruguay, conservative democracy. Elections in May. See what happens there. Chile's having their elections. I know Chile's supposed to have a civil war, which is going to be interesting. Let's form an agricultural commission. The Peasants' League has lost its leader. Now the rural regions of Brazil are once more in chaos. Peasant leagues and unions, no longer restrained, are making unrestrained demands and striking en masse. Even when strikes are not taking place, employee-employer tensions are beginning to rise to an unsustainable level. It's beginning to negatively affect our politics and economy. This cannot be borne. Accordingly, President Lott will convene an agricultural commission in order to devise a plan of action for this agrarian reform and devise a bill that will put this issue to rest once and for all. Well, there we go. It was a beautiful day in Rio de Janeiro, and Carlos Lacerda was doing something he did very frequently, clearing favelas. Crack teams of construction workers and police officers were deployed into the favelas at the capital of Guanabara in order to push them further into the outskirts of the city and make way for gentrified infrastructure. Groups of poor people were evicted from their homes by Lacerda's men and sent north, east, and west, permitted to live anywhere but in the districts that they were living in before Lacerda began the plan. As the previous residents left or were taken away by perforce to districts far from where they began on the day, groups of builders cleared the huts, shanties, and old buildings with bulldozers and backhoes in order to replace them with more modern, prosperous constructs. As the efforts continued, Lacerda himself arrived on the scene, wearing a builder's helmet and other safety equipment on top of his semi-formal attire. As he observed the effort from above, he was pleased, though as always he didn't show too much of it. He had faith that the buildings, towering apartments and complexes where these favelas had once stood, would once again improve the prosperity of Rio and of Guanabara more generally. So long as he remained in power, Lacerda resolved to himself this process of favela clearing would continue. It had to continue for the good of the city and of the nation. The price of housing in Rio was rapidly increasing, and unless he took decisive action, that the prices would continue to increase, which only caused the favelas themselves to also increase. This action, while harsh, at least ensured that the people he was now evicting would soon have decent housing within the apartment blocks being built. His opponents, Getulist and other such bleeding hearts, and catspaws of fascism and communism, were welcome to complain if they wanted. If he raised their voices too loudly, he could just send a newspaper or two after them. Most of them would thank him for it eventually, anyway, he thought. Certainly interesting how this is all going down. Ooh. Dominican Republic, where's he at? Who's there now? Reformist Party, Ordem. Exile into Uruguay? Huh. What does that mean? Let's subsidize mechanization. I was not know how to pronounce that. It's weird. Although we're coming along very well on the Trans-Amazonian Highway, which I'm proud about. Vitor had been a bureaucrat for almost 6 years now, but this posting was completely new. He'd been a city man all his life, never been in the countryside once, and he'd been picked for the Agricultural Commission because they were impressed with his previous work. Your census for his district was one of the best I ever received. How do you feel about getting some fresh air? So Vitor was sent to the countryside as part of a commission to do initial findings and investigate if land reform was needed. A simple task, but the sights he encountered made his head reel. Yes, electricity was slowly spreading. Yes, more young people could read. Yes, the richer peasants had old but well-kept cars. Yes, the countryside had been in many ways barely moved out of the last century. The mayors were so stinking rich that the insides of their houses made Rio's finest apartments look shabby. Kaidos still dominated the states and had eyes and ears everywhere. Nothing happened in the lands without their permission. Despite years upon years of promised poverty and the slow grinding life remained to plague the people. As he left for the last house of yet another poor peasant who'd still strained herself with immense dignity to tell him of her plight, Vitor steeled himself. He was a city man. He had never had been in been in the countryside, but these people who fed Brazil, who fooled its heart, had been lied to and again, forcing to cling to empty promises that were never fulfilled. The commission would finally ensure that these peasants would get their fair due. Let's promote some more loyal officers. Let's deploy Golart. Jao Golart is a well-respected among the rural and labor movements. De facto leader of a PTB is known for his ability to effectively empathize with the people. People are willing to tell him what they want and listen to his suggestions in a way that Lot or even any other prominent member of PSD or even the PTB cannot hope to equal. This is just what we need if we want to bring about a positive end to this situation. President Lot recognizes this. Accordingly, he will send Golart to talk with these people and calm them down. There we go. I'm working on some infantry equipment, and I guess some bettering into E tank. Sophie Walter landed in Guararapes Airport for her vacation in Brazil. She breathed a sigh of relief. Back home in Hamburg, she had to look over her shoulder in fear ever since she realized she liked women in a rather more intimate way than most people did. The kind of way that was more than enough justification for Himmler's Lot, or the Sideport for that matter, to come in the dark of a night and take you away to be re-educated as a degenerate of a true Aryan woman. Sophie kept looking over her shoulder until she could bear it no more. At last she enlisted the help of some trustworthy connections, some of whom were apparently connected to the more radically liberal members of her generation. This, combined with the support of some of her more open-minded family members, was enough to get her to scrounge together enough Reichsmarks to go somewhere more welcoming. She took enough with her where she was able to establish herself, but not so much as to attract police attention. As Sophie stood in the inspection line, she grew more and more nervous. She heard Brazil was remarkably welcoming to refugees from Germany, but she kept second-guessing her decision. When she finally made it to the front of the line, she handed her passport and papers over to the office and said in a Portuguese sentence she'd rehearsed over and over again. "Sir, I am a refugee fleeing from Germany." The officer at the till looked at him for a while, sighed, stamped her documents, and returned them to her. Then he motioned her to continue into the airport. Sophie nodded and moved on. As Sophie Walter headed to the airport, she heard the same practice sentence that the officer gave to every Brazilian immigrant that passed him by. Unlike most others, however, those words lifted her heart as nothing else had in years. Bem-vinda ao Brasil. And now they're growing restless. What the fuck? But they're loyal. Got a fair bit of constitutionalists. The moderates are weaning out a bit, but if we have more constitutionalists in general, I think we'll be fine. Let's check with some Kubitschek holdovers. What? Lee drifted in and out of consciousness, catching bits of conversation and activities of meals as they drifted past him. Muttered curses, a loud belt of laughter, metal on metal grinding. His lean-toast fabric walls provided no shelter from the sounds of daily activity, as he tried desperately to catch some sleep for the upcoming shift. He was on night crews this section of a highway, tasked with clearing debris and paving where the budget allowed. Their funds had been a lot barer recently, as the poor bastard up north finally started construction. At least he only had to pave over savannas down here. Lee was finally falling back asleep when a sudden jolt shocked him awake, falling out of his hammock with a shout. He scrambled back to his feet upon seeing the source of his rude awakening, the titan of muscle and ill-fitting clothes that served as his new crew boss. Manuel looked down at Lee, his scarred hand still wrapped around the strings connecting Lee's hammock to his lean-toe poles. "Bad news, son. They just took one of our dozers, meaning everyone gets to start work 2 hours earlier. I've already heard every other fucking camp bitch about it, so do yourself a favor, get ready and shut it. With that, he stomped down the line, shaking awake the other members of the night crew. Lee sighed and started pulling on his gear. It wasn't right to make an anchor watchman work while the sun was still up. Not right at all. Do I even get paid overtime? Well, construction on the highway is slowing down, which kind of sucks, but hey, what are we going to do? It's coming along. And for now, I'm going to have to cut it here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you as always for watching. If you like this video, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you want to see more of this content feature, hit the sub button from uploads every weekday, as well as occasionally Saturdays. If you have any comments, feedback, concerns, anything of the sort, leave in the comment section below. I read all comments again and appreciate any feedback you might have for me. If you want to chat, play games, anything of the sort, check out my Discord. If you want to send back to my every month at Patreon, if you want to see me do sort of live, I have a Twitch. I'll put you down in the description box below. That's really about it for now, ladies and gentlemen. My name has been Dogwell333. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.